The following is a presentation of the WRAD Talk Network and New River Radio Group. It's time for Fourth and Goal, presented by Cody Jernell of the Gravity Real Estate Group on the WRAD Talk Network. Voice of the Pulaski County Cougars, Rick Watson, is here to discuss and break down this week's matchups in the New River Valley and beyond. Here is Rick Watson.
And we welcome you into another edition of the Fourth and Goal Show. We preview all the high school action coming up, and we look back at last Friday night as well. I'm Rick Watson, joined as always by the sports director at WFXR and the man who hosts the Blitz, Friday Night Blitz, every evening on a Friday on WFXR. His name is Jermaine Ferrell. Jermaine, how are you, my friend?
How you doing, sir? Another fun and busy Friday night that we in store for.
And we're blitzing through this season, aren't we? My goodness. I mean, we're now into the latter fourth, the final month coming up, final 4 games or so for most schools. There are going to be some makeup dates here and there. But, we said it earlier this year, couldn't wait to get started. We had some bumps, fewer bumps, hopefully ahead, but it goes by so quickly. It's amazing how fast high school football season flies by.
Yeah, you talk about, you have 10 games to play in an 11-week span. And then even other things. I mean, it really goes pretty quick. So, the last 4 weeks of the season, a lot of these teams, they want to make a run. They're going to have to get things going pretty quick and then also get all the games in, because look at some of these teams, they're going to have to jam in a lot of games. You're going to have some teams that might have to play, 2 games a week or something like that within a 7-week span or 7-day span.
Yeah.
We have to see how all that plays out.
And I saw Salem's going to be doing that a couple times maybe, right? Because they had situations they couldn't control. I know they added the Blacksburg game back. So, yeah, it's going to be a real test for these kids and for these coaches, right, to keep squads healthy as you get down to the stretch to where those postseason games are popping up.
And all boils down to playoffs, because you definitely want to have 10 games on your roster. We've mentioned that. We can't stress it enough with the VHSL. What they're saying is, hey, you got to figure out a way to get these games in. So it's going to be very important. And obviously, you mentioned the fact that Salem is going to do it a couple times. I mean, they coming up, after they play, they play Tuesday, against Franklin County. And then obviously they got to get that Blacksburg game back in the mix. And so it's going to be game time. And a lot of these teams are doing it. And, but that's just what it is. If you want to make a playoff run and want to get everything done, you got to get all those games in. It's so important.
Well, last week, I believe you had your Friday night Blitz game of the week, and we looked at it on paper, and it looked like it was a perfect selection. And then the Glenver Highlanders had different ideas, didn't they, as they were just dominant in their win over Floyd.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was speaking to some people about this. Glenver, when you look at them, I mean, 54-0 over Floyd, and they've really, dominated this series over the last few years. They continue the dominance, and they're playing with a lot of balance and playing well. And, their quarterback Aiden Wolk, who we did a spotlight feature on Wednesday evening. Mm-hmm. And the neat thing about him, he wants to go to Liberty. He's been accepted into Liberty, and he wants to have an opportunity to try to play with their football program. But, obviously he has a higher calling. He wants to go into the ministry. He wants to do all those things. So to him, he wants to use football as an outlet, but he has a bigger purpose, and that shows the maturity and wiseness of him. But you wouldn't expect anything less from a Kevin Clifford football team. That's what they do. I mean, they are, great young people. But the interesting thing is, I mean, when you look at that region and the regional playoff ratings came out, Glenver is number 1.
Yeah.
Right behind them, the Appomattox Raiders number 2. And, if the seedings hold out and, if it looks that way and if it goes back, you could have those 2 teams again meet in the playoffs. They've met in the playoffs over the last few years, and they could eventually do that in Region 2C. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out. But still, there's a whole lot more football to play. Like I said, we've got about a month to go before we let all that settle in on the playoffs and everything.
Yeah, everybody's excited over those regional top 10 lists right now. The top 8 are going, obviously, back to the original formula this year in the fall, but people get excited with things. You just said it right, though. I mean, people forget there's still a month to go. There's still a lot of winning and or losing that can take place we're still going to see quite a bit of shuffling, aren't we, in those regional lists?
Yes, sir. We sure are. And the thing is, people got to realize not everybody's played, all their games. So the ratings that like you said, the ratings we see today are going to be the ratings we won't see, the following week.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody just needs to buckle up and enjoy it. It's kind of like when we get those playoff ratings for the college football playoff. Everybody's like, oh, well, why aren't we in the mix? Well, pump your brakes.
Calm down.
We're only in the, we're only in the first, the middle of October. Just wait till the first part of November, and that's where it'll all be finalized. But it's going to be our see how it shakes out. And I think really with all these games, Rick, the way teams are playing, and, someone made a joke to me and said, I guess, with everything's going on, we're going to have football games every day. I mean, like I said, when you look at our schedule again, we had a football game Thursday night. We're going to have football Friday. We're going to have Saturday, not on Sunday. And then we got games on Monday and Tuesday. And I think maybe this year we've had a game on Wednesday. Probably snuck by me. So it's kind of one of those situations, but you have to go accordingly and govern yourself accordingly to get everything in. So your playoff position can be good, whether it's you definitely want to get to 10. You don't want it to be around 9. You don't want that because every game is so important because it's playoff points and it's points to be involved.
Well, speaking of a team that looks like they're in positioning to defend their state crown, I saw Salem first throttle last weekend, Pulaski County, and 55-6 later, you walk away even more impressed than you knew you were probably going to be, defensively especially. That team is locked in. It's amazing how they line up and don't hurt themselves. And we talked about this last week, Jermaine, but only one penalty the entire game, no turnovers. They forced a few turnovers on their own. This is a team that, they have a good offense, but that defense for Salem, seeing them up close is the best I'm going to see all season long.
That's interesting. And I think when you look at Salem, and that seems like over the years, one thing that seems to get lost when you talk about them, but it's always there. It's always reliable. Like like when you're in the Army, your paycheck on the 1st and 15th, reliable all the time. Right. That Salem defense, I think people forget about them, which is kind of crazy. They see the offense, which by the way, their offense is a ground and pound. Yeah, they open it up when they need to. But over the years, Salem has always had great defense, and a lot of the players that play on offense also play on defense. They play the other side. But in my lifetime, and when you think of the Salem-Pulaski rivalry, when you go all the way back to like the days of Willis White and Joel Hicks, and even later on with all the other coaches, the Jack Turners, the Stephen Magenbauers, and now the Don Holters and Mark Dixons, and, Stephen James in the mix. Never in my wildest dreams would I think that a Salem team or even a Pulaski team would win a game by 49 points.
No.
We're talking 7 touchdowns. And the thing is, the game was close early. Pulaski scored a touchdown, it was a 1-point game, but then Salem turned it on. They were up 7-6, and Salem just got on a roll. And, it's like the lights are out. And, I'm sure, all the people in the history of being associated with Pulaski County football. And it's not even just Salem. You've never seen – that might be one of the biggest margins of defeat ever for a Pulaski team. It's got to be up there. I'm sure, and we can look all that up. But, and you've, like I said, Rick, you've been on the call of Pulaski County football over the years.
Yeah.
Can you ever remember a game where the Cougars lost 55-6 or somewhere along that line? No. They're usually the ones that are doing a 55-6 on somebody. But here's the thing: you got great coaching, Mark Dixon, and again, they've had some injuries, so that's another thing. Yeah. So you have all that recipe built in. You have a Salem team that's on a roll, trying to prove something. That's really was a tough deal. But again, I never count the Cougars out. When you look at the playoff rankings, if there was a start, they would be on the outside looking in. Right now you look at them, they would have an opportunity, to try to get in. But again, they would be in 9th. And, they're about a point. Actually, they're a point behind Amherst. So, that's still a lot to go. Pulaski still got other games, but really right now it's all about they're going to have to start winning again, because being at 3-3 and you're on the outside looking in, you gotta And then you got to hope some teams above you lose. But, when you look at Region 4D, Rick, I mean, Western Albemarle is leading that region.
Yeah.
But then after that, GW, Salem, EC Glass, and Halifax, they're all, separated together by about 0.6 of a point
I know.
between second and fifth. And one of those teams, two of those teams, if it plays out that way, and will play each other probably in the first round in a 4-5 matchup. I mean, against Salem, when you look at their point situation, they're 4-1, but they're going to pick up a lot of points because they'll play, they play Franklin County, which is class 16. They play Patrick Henry, a class 5. They still got Hidden Valley. So, if they went out on those games, there's a good chance. I mean, even though, you're roughly about 3.5 points behind Western Albemarle, and Western Albemarle, they played 6 games versus, those teams playing 5 games.
Right.
I mean, they can easily zoom up there. So, I know a lot of people look at those again. They look at the playoff points. They're like, hey, wait a minute, where are we? But there's a lot of games, like I said, and it depends on who you play and if you can get a victory. So, we'll see what happens the rest of the way. But it's going to be fun times looking at that.
Well, speaking of your alma mater here before the break, Patrick Henry, Hidden Valley, feeling great about themselves, 6-0, and kind of talking to some coaches. People thought maybe they'd been doing that with mirrors, and the Patriots, they shattered the mirror, 44-7. And speaking of teams that are on a roll, Patrick Henry, you mentioned in Division 5, they are playing extremely well right now.
Yeah, they are. And the thing is, again, that's another score I didn't see. I did not see, PH beating Hidden Valley 44-7. I thought it'd be a close game. But Webb, and the way he ran the ball.
Yeah.
Chuck Webb, they call him, Aaron Webb, but he's Chuck Well. I mean, rush for, 290 yards and all those scores. I mean, that's something that he's coming back from the injury. So no one really, that's another piece, because when you think of an Alvin Fiddler team, Rick, you think of a team that they pass the ball, they throw the ball around. But you got a running game and you get those offensive linemen to run block and do all those things. When you run block, it's so much fun to do that versus pass blocking, because you can mano a mano, round and round.
Yeah.
And when you get 290 yards of rushing, that's going to open some eyes. And they've won their last 5 games. I mean, after that loss to Brookville, they had a lot of kids, a young team. A lot of kids have never played varsity football, and you get that lesson real quick. And Brookville was a good teacher for them. And then ever since that, they've gone on a 5-game winning streak, and they're definitely one of the hottest teams on the field. Now they got Cave Spring coming up tonight, but then after that, I mean, their last 3 games consist of Christiansburg, consist of Salem, and consist of Pulaski. So talk about ending your season with 3 tough teams. So right then and there, again, it's like, well, okay, we're going to see where you are, see where you stand, but it'll be interesting. And I think the order is Christiansburg. Hey, here's your order. Christiansburg, that game is at Christiansburg.
Right.
I think the Pulaski game is at Patrick Henry, and then they go to Salem Stadium to play Salem. So there you go. After tonight, the step up in weight class with some of those teams you're playing.
No question.
And Cave Spring is not under Coach Leftwich over there. Nick Leftwich. I mean, they're not an easy out either. So
now they're healthy again, right? They got everybody back now. So
they got everybody back. So I mean, I know their record is 2-4, but you still, I mean, that's another rivalry game. So you never know with that. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, when I saw them, they were banged up, but they're starting to play better. It's amazing what happens when you get key players back and ready to go. You are in tune to the 4th and Goal show. We will step out. We will take a break, and we'll look ahead to tonight. There are some terrific games as we send you on to your chosen ballpark, getting you ready to rock and roll on a Friday night. Stay with us. More coming up.
Now back to more comprehensive high school football coverage in the New River Valley on 4th and Goal, presented by Cody Jernell of the Gravity Real Estate Group on WRAD. Here once again is Rick Watson.
And we welcome you back into the 4th and Goal show, getting you primed and ready as you head out to your chosen game tonight. Rick Watson and Jermaine Ferrell, the sports director at WFXR. Be sure when you get home, check out the Friday Night Blitz on WFXR. Your first look at all the action from around the region. They cover all the games. So be sure to check them out tonight. And looking around, I mean, just talking about some of the games here in the area, New River Valley, Christiansburg going to travel down to Roanoke County to take on Hidden Valley. How do they respond after their loss? Christiansburg did well after their loss against Salem with a shutout last week of Blacksburg. Pulaski County, another situation. They have to go to Blacksburg. The Bruins still looking for their first win. How do the banged-up Cougars respond? You mentioned K-Spring, Patrick Henry. That'll be intriguing as well. Can Floyd County come back against James River and get a win at home after they were beaten pretty badly by Glenver? And there's so many teams that have to kind of show what they're made of after a tough loss. Carroll County got beaten last week pretty badly by Radford. It's very important this time of year, isn't it, Jermaine? This is where coaches find out about their teams because schedules get tougher within the district, and how you respond kind of sets you up to whether or not, first of all, you're going to make the playoffs, and then how you might be able to proceed throughout the playoffs.
That's very true, Rick. And you brought up a team that had to learn how to bounce back. Radford Highlanders. I'm thinking of your college.
Hey, go are you?
The Bobcats. Yeah, so I figured that you got to be careful when you talk about Radford. Are you talking about the Highlanders?
That's right.
Or are you talking about the Bobcats? So I just want to make sure. I'm sure everybody knows it's the Bobcats. So,
because of my hoodie, because of the Radford.
That's what it is. That's what threw me off.
Yeah.
I'll take the L on that, as they say. But when you look at the Radford Bobcats, I mean, had two tough losses, the tough loss to Galax, and then, Christiansburg took it to them. And so that could have went one of two ways, because you're sitting at, at the situation, you get blown out, you're 3-2. But then guess what you did? They turned it around, got two good wins. So now, they kind of move up the chain, move up the ranks. And so, Radford, they've responded, they played well, they turned it around. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're off this week, but they're 5-2, or actually they're 4-2. But I think they're off this week, if I'm not mistaken, Rick. I'm looking at the schedule.
Radford is.
They are
off. They are.
So, yeah, they got that off. So, they've responded. And that's what you have to do, Rick. I mean, how do you handle adversity? How do you handle a situation where, okay, we've been embarrassed the last 2 weeks. So what are we going to do to dust ourselves off and get rock and rolling? And they've done that. They've come back and, they played pretty well. And when you look at that, we look at the regional rankings again in Region 2C. I mean, they're still in the mix because right now they're in the fifth spot, right behind Floyd County. So right there, I mean, they're in the mix. In fact, it's real tightly bunched up, between Floyd County, Radford in the mix down there. So they're battling for a home field game. When you look at that, because Radford, they're 5-2. I said 4-2, but they're 5-2. Floyd County's 4-2. So right then and there, because of just the playoff points and the playoff positioning, it's going to be real tight. So we'll see how that plays out too. But it's really fun because all these games, I mean, now everybody's going to be playing. Everybody's going to be close. But yeah, I did Christiansburg. You mentioned Christiansburg, Hidden Valley. That's going to be a good one. Again, how does Hidden Valley respond after a loss, being punched in the mouth, as they say? That's a funny expression when someone uses that, Rick. Whenever you lose a game, you respond by how do you respond after getting punched in the mouth?
Punch in the mouth.
That is, it's kind of like in boxing. I mean, they use that now. Okay,
absolutely.
A boxer hits you in the face. Obviously Wilder didn't respond to.
Yeah,
I guess Wilder didn't respond too well to Fury.
He did not. He did not.
Word on the street.
Word on the street, right? Yeah, that Tyson Fury guy's pretty good. Yeah.
I don't follow boxing as well as I should because boxing is it's okay, but it's not as good as it used to be. But anyway, I digress. We need to get back to football. But yeah, a lot of good games. The Hidden Valley Christiansburg game. It's gonna be a fun one.
It is.
So we'll see what they do. But I can tell you right now, I think a Scott Weaver coach team and an Alec Wilkins team, two great coaches that we have in the area, that they're going to step up and they're going to be, that has the potential to be, and Christiansburg's athletes are very similar to Patrick Henry's athletes too. We talk about the speed and you talk about all the things they have. So be on the lookout for that one as well. It's going to be a good one between those teams. And, you mentioned Blacksburg and Pulaski County, that's going to be a situation where, Pulaski, how do they respond after a beat down? And Blacksburg also got beat down. So, I mean, can Blacksburg get the W? So that'll be a key game. And it's a must win for Pulaski for their playoff position, like we mentioned earlier. And then, so we'll see how it goes with those. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun time, youngin, tonight.
Well, let me ask you now, looking at just some of the games Southside and in the Seminole, you got the Halifax GW, Blast Jefferson Forest, Rustburg Amherst, Brookville Liberty, LCA and Heritage. Now, that's tough, but I'm going to ask you, out of all those great matchups, which one of those do you think is the one to keep an eye on? Because they're all pretty good matchups across the board.
Well, I think you probably got to look at LCA and Heritage at City Stadium, right?
Yeah.
Because those are the top two teams in Region 3C when you look at the playoff points. Because and now when you look at the numbers and I'm looking them up right now as we speak. I like to stretch because that's how I roll. So to gather, but yeah, when you look at LCA, they're 5-0. Heritage is 5-1, and Heritage's only loss was to Dinwiddie, which was a Class 4 team.
Yeah.
So and people kind of forget about that. I mean, Dinwiddie's a good program. Took it to Heritage, but other than that, I mean, Heritage has been rocking and rolling, and they're about, a point and a half behind LCA. So the winner of this game was going to have the number one spot. But then if LCA gets this win over Heritage, then it might be, for all intents and purposes, they might lock up home field advantage in the region. I mean, and I know it's still a lot more football to go, but, to beat, basically you've beaten the second place team, the third place team. And then, obviously, I mean, you've beaten like Rustburg, they're 7th, and I think they've played Liberty Bedford. I got to look again. I don't think they have yet, but you've pretty much dominated for the most part the district. Even though hey, it's still LCA, but yes, when you have two coaches and Coach Rocco and Coach Bradley for the respective teams, you got some big time stuff there. So, I mean, that's going to be a matchup to keep your eye on. And then obviously, and then you mentioned another one too, GW Danville and Halifax. That's going to be a big one.
I like
because
that one
again, you're talking about two teams, that are in the same region. And, the fact that they're so tightly bunched, in Region 4D, the winner of that game is going to put themselves in a good position to lock up a spot and even, have a good seed. And the loser, I mean, that's going to be a tough one. So we'll see what happens. And some of these teams got to make up all these games, get them all in. So it'll be a fun one there. And then, so those are the ones I kind of think if you had to say, hey, what's big? These are the ones. And that GW Halifax game, that'll actually be on a Saturday. So they'll play that game tomorrow. So we'll have that.
Well, let's tip our hat to the smaller schools, shall we? I mean, those schools that are really struggling with numbers, I mean, no more so than Auburn. They do have enough players to go to Bland. Bland had to get their program restarted. They've been very competitive most weeks. Same thing with Narrows. We know smaller school traditionally, but we know how good they've been over the last few years. And Craig County, they're playing really hard. I mean, you look at some of these schools, Eastmont, that have had numbers issues. It's great to see them be able to go out and play high school football on a Friday night, because even though they may not be as large as some of the other schools, those kids have the same impact on their communities.
And you mentioned the Auburn Bland game. That game actually got canceled.
Yeah, it's
Auburn
gone now.
called it off.
Yeah.
So Bland County, they're actually going to play Thomas Walker. But again, it's the numbers game. And right now, if you're Auburn, I mean, and we've had some schools cancel their season, and I'm not saying Auburn should do that, but it's tough when you don't have the numbers to practice, number one. And you want to put your players in a position where they're going to do some damage and put themselves in a dangerous spot. So be interested how that goes.
Are they on those games like that? Are they considered forfeits? Or are they just not any longer on the schedule? Did they come up with a uniform decision on that? Or
I do know that the VHSL, they talked about that. One of the things they said is you got to try to get the games in. And then I think you have to come to a determination. Is it a forfeit? Is it a no contest? If it's a no contest, you don't get any credit. If it's a forfeit, you get some credit. But they want everybody to play the games. And, the VHSL, we got to kind of see what they're trying to do. I think they gave out a statement about that. But, I think like, for instance, if games were postponed earlier this year, you got to come to a determination. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to count it as a forfeit because, again, you have to factor these in the points.
Well, that's exactly right.
And if there's a game that's just dangling out there and they haven't done it yet, then that's an issue.
Yeah, I agree. And I know they put something out there about with virus protocols, but when you don't have enough players, it's not the fault of the other team either, just to say we're taking this game away. And you're exactly right. You have to consider those other teams that may have played them in a situation where a win, regardless of who you're going against, could put you over the top. So it's something I wish the VHSL would have been a little more, let's say, assertive on. So we're not second guessing. I wouldn't be asking these questions if I knew the answers. So they need to get that out there a little bit more. I certainly understand if teams can't play because of a lack of players and things like that, but the other side of it has to be looked at as well. So
yeah, because they got to figure that out. But again, I mean, it's a lot going on. So it's something that I've harped on a lot. The VHSL got to figure it out, and they'll get that going. But one game here's a game that I think there's two games that people should probably keep their eye on. One, Northside and Stanton River. Now, when you look at the regional ratings in this game, these two teams are right by each other in Region 3D. So that's a game, Stanton River, right now they're in 5th and Northside is 6th. So, and Northside's played more games. Northside is 2-4 coming off that good win over William Fleming. So that's going to be another game to keep your eye on. Again, a lot of these games are close in playoff proximity as far as points. So good ones. Another one, again, we mentioned this before, Galax and George Witt, the rivalry game. It's
huge rivalry.
The maroon battle.
That's it. And Maroon Tide. Yeah.
Get you some of that, as they say.
Where are you guys going to be? Where are you guys going to be tonight? Where's your?
We're going to be. Our game of the week is going to be William Fleming at Lord Botetourt. We're going to have a slimmed down version of Friday Night Blitz tonight, and the reason behind that, obviously we have the baseball playoffs. We're airing those tonight. So, right after the coverage of the ALCS, then we're going to have our newscast, and then we'll have a mini version of Friday Night Blitz. So we'll have that going, and we'll have that in there right afterwards. So. It's kind of, I can't give you a pinpoint time because it depends on baseball. How baseball is.
Oh,
baseball
yeah.
Could be,
you be on at 1 a.m.
Yeah, we could go on at 1 a.m. You never know. So, but stay tuned to that. And then, we'll have our coverage on WFXRTV.com. So stay tuned.
Yes.
They say.
Well, listen, man, great stuff. We're excited now because, as you mentioned, even though you kind of take it with a grain of salt, when those regional rankings come out, people start getting excited about the postseason. And coming up this week, at least from a virus situation, no planned postponements. You mentioned because with kids not being available because of injuries, we had to cancel a few games. But this is the first week I can remember where we've had nothing assigned to virus protocols. So that is great news. And Jermaine, listen, we appreciate your time. We look forward to your coverage on WFXR, and we'll talk to you again next week. Enjoy the ball games tonight, my friend.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. We appreciate you, Rick.
All right, there you go. That's Jermaine Ferrell, WFXR, and we thank you for listening to Fourth and Goal Show. We'll see you next week, everybody. Have fun at the ballparks. Take care.
You've been listening to Fourth and Goal with Rick Watson, presented by Cody Journell of the Gravity Real Estate Group on the WRAD Talk Network. Tune in again Fridays at 6 p.m. all season long for in-depth analysis of high school football in the New River Valley. This has been a production of the WRAD Talk Network and New River Radio Group. Copyright 2021. All rights reserved.